Hello, 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 and welcome back to the podcast. Thank you very much for being here. Okay, you guys, I sound like a man today, but I'm just sick, and everybody told me that I'm going to be coughing forever. So we'll see how that goes. I'm going to try to stack up on all my vitamins so I'm not coughing forever and I beat this thing. Anyway, we are going to talk about rates of return because apparently everybody needs a reminder. And yes, this will probably turn into a rant. I don't think I've had a rant in a while, but I am like so over this. Maybe I just need to stay off of social media and stop going into groups where people are trying to figure out what sort of rate of return, what company is the best, blah, 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 blah. So here we go. Somebody recently posted on social media about what kind of rate of return. And I can get a X amount of rate of return in this investment. I don't understand why I should be doing infinite banking. In fact, I may even give up the policy that I have because I can get a better rate of return outside the policy. People, it's the policy and it is an and asset. For the love of Pete, if you are doing research, if you have not read Becoming Your Own Banker, which is the book that was written on the concept, R. Nelson Nash developed the concept. If you have not read that book, read it. If you still are asking about rates of return, read it again. You are not getting the concept. In the last, I would say 3 weeks, the amount of people that ask me, well, what is my rate of return in the policy versus what I'm paying in a policy loan? It's not short-term thinking. It's long-term thinking. Read the book again. If you are asking me that question, that means you haven't read my book. It means you haven't read Nelson's book and really looked at the numbers. Sometimes you need to read it more than once. Because guess what? I'm never giving you a rate of return because it is a formula. Every single company figures their rate of return off of a formula. There is a gross rate. Every company has a gross rate of return, which means nothing because it's gross. It's not net. And then the rest of the formula. When are you going to die? How long before you turn 121? If y'all can figure out the rate of return on that, great. There are agents in this world of infinite banking that will sit and argue with me all darn day to tell me I'm an idiot because I don't look at the rate of return in the policy. I will not look at an internal rate of return. I don't really give two craps what the dividend is paying as long as the dividend is paying. We are so worried about rates of return that we spend all of our time and energy trying to figure out a rate of return when we should be figuring out how to go start a business to create cash flow. When was the last time you actually investigated that instead of some stinking rate of return? You need the rate of return in your investment because you can't do anything else with it. It sits there and it either goes up or it goes down or it stays the same. And then you have this average crap, and that's all we hear about. That is not what infinite banking is about. Infinite banking is about characters in the play. It's about liquidity, control, and guarantees. It's about accessing our money, being the banker. If you don't know what any of this stuff means, long-term thinking, if you don't know what any of that stuff means, then go read the book again. Listen to some more podcasts. This is what I find interesting, is there's a bunch of people out there that are agents who are touting infinite banking, but when somebody comes in and asks a question about a rate of return, they're so darn quick to pull up their stupid calculators and their stupid spreadsheets and figure out a rate of return. Those people are not infinite banking practitioners. They are not authorized. And the reason they're not authorized is because maybe they don't believe in the Nelson Nash Institute. When the Nelson Nash Institute, there is a standard. And we go by that standard. And that standard is we teach what Nelson was teaching, which was not about rates of return. Does he have a whole darn section in his book about rates of return? No. I have them in my book because people kept asking me. I wish I'd taken it out. What you need to understand about rates of return is there's an average and an actual. That's what I have in my book. If you haven't read it, read it. And if you read it and you don't remember reading it, go back and read it again. They don't mean anything. What did we do outside the policy with our money? And so when people come to me and say, well, Mary Jo, what's the difference? And we look at an illustration and I look 30, 40 years down the road, I'm like, are you ever, and your money's quadrupled, are we going to look at what we paid in interest to the insurance company? You're never going to pay to the company in interest when you borrow money what you are making with uninterrupted compound money. You are not comparing apples to apples. The end of the day, go do something with your life besides figure out what some darn rate of return is, because it's not about that. What business did you start? What kind of rate of return did you get on that? The $10,000 that I took out of my IRA to start my policy and then my business with that money, what is my rate of return on that? Nobody asks me that. A couple of weeks ago, I talked about a client who borrowed money from his policy to buy cows. Then he went to the bank and he used those exact same cows as collateral for another loan. Essentially, those cows have 2 loans on it. Not a method for the meek and mild, by the way, but he leveraged that policy twice. Anybody talking about that out there? No, nobody's talking about that. Instead, they're worried about a dang rate of return. Get over it already. God, it just gets me so angry, obviously. There are so many things we can be doing, so many things we can be creating cash value with. So many things to understand. Parkinson's law, Willie Sutton's law, the characters in play. All the things that infinite banking is not. And yet, this is the one thing we're stuck on. Shut off the noise, as Nelson would say. Shut it off. This is the noise of what we're hearing. Social media and in these groups with infinite banking, and so many agents are talking about rates of return. They are nothing but absolute, utter noise. If you are not hearing and you are not listening to a podcast on infinite banking that is talking about all of the stuff in Nelson's book and how to create cash flow, shut it off. If they are talking about rates of return, shut it off. They have no idea what they're doing. Move on to the next agent, move on to the next podcast, whatever that is. Reread Nelson's book. There really isn't a need for any other book, not even mine. My book is a very great entry-level book to get you to just sort of think and correctly understand what we're trying to teach here. But Nelson's book is the ultimate gospel of what is to be understood with the concept. And we forget it. We forget it because we get stuck in these groups and with these people that all they want to do is try to find their best rate of return. Here's another one. There's a lot of people out there in the infinite banking space that are agents that are trying to do alternative investments, meaning bridge loans and all these other things that can create this big rate of return. Is it going to create cash flow? Is it a good business to start? If I have to give money to somebody so they can give me a rate of return by lending money to other people, I will do that myself. I will take that risk myself, but I am not going to give that money to a third party in hopes that they will not squander my money away. You have to be smart about what you're doing. You want to be the banker. You want to be the lender. You want to be the borrower. You want to control it all. And as soon as we give it to somebody else, are we controlling it? Probably not. Do your due diligence on that front. That is all risk. What we're doing over here is not risk. My risk tolerance is very low compared to most other people. It is very low, and I'm totally okay with that. I'm okay making less money so that I don't have the big losses and thinking about stuff and doing my due diligence and all that kind of stuff. But be smart about it. Go back to the fundamental principles of what infinite banking is. And it's not hard. Here's another thing. Oh my gosh, it is easy when you quit making it so hard. That is what one of my clients said, and it is going to stick with me forever because everybody makes this so difficult. And it's not difficult. It's the easiest thing in the world. You pay your premium and you borrow against the cash value to go buy said thing, to go start said business. It does not matter what it's for. It doesn't matter if it's for a car. It doesn't matter if it's for a house, if it's for a rental property, if it's to start a business, if it's for land, if it's for cattle. It doesn't matter. It does not matter. So many people are just stuck with these blinders on. And they're like, Mary Jo, I don't get it. I don't understand how it's going to work for me. It's going to work for you the exact same way it works for every other person that does it. It's just what you're buying with it changes. And so if we're going to buy a piece of equipment with it versus a business, it just changes how we might pay that back. We're making it so difficult and we're not looking. Look at Nelson's book. How was he borrowing? How was he paying back? Look at my book. How are you borrowing? How are you paying back? Just change what that's for in the story of the book. And it's going to be the exact same thing. Now, are you going to have questions? Yes. Are you going to need someone to walk you through that? Yes, that is what I am here for. But for the love of Pete, do not ask me what a rate of return is. If you don't understand how to use it, that is understandable. Because guess what? That's what nobody's talking about. Because they're all talking about rates of return. So if you don't understand how to actually use the policy and what some of those scenarios are, then you are going to be a little bit confused. But spend your time trying to figure that out. Don't spend your time on rates of return. Spend your time on figuring out how you're going to create more income and what you're going to do. Did I have to say something to this person online? I did, because I just couldn't sit there. And I said, go do something. Go buy your next policy. Basically, be quiet, buy your next policy, and go do something with life. Because sitting here worrying about a rate of return is not making you any money. It's losing you money. Wealthy people do not sit around worrying about what their rate of return on something is going to be. They go do whatever it is to see if they can get a return and some cash flow and move on if it doesn't work. Sit and dwell on something so minor. It's no different than coupon clipping. Like, I get a lot of people do it. But guess what? We spend more time figuring out how to save money than we do figuring out how to make money. Think about that. Think about that. We're like going through our expenses, and I just got done telling my 18-year-old this exact same thing. She's like, oh my gosh, I can't afford anything. And she's all worried about all these expenses that are coming out of her checkbook and where they're going and who's taking money for this and this membership. And I'm canceling this membership and I'm canceling that membership. And I said, here's the deal. That's good. You don't want to overpay on stuff that's not necessary. However, are you sitting down to figure out how you're going to make more money to have everything you want? Or are you just going to sit down and figure out what you can cut for expenses? You can figure out what you're going to cut for expenses and put all your time and energy into that. Or you can sit and figure out how I'm going to make more money. and put time and energy into that. We get to decide where our time and energy goes. Same thing with rates of return. I used to think that way. Not anymore. I'm not going to worry about what expenses I need to cut. I'm just going to figure out how I can make more money, and all the rest of that stuff is all going to get paid for. Okay, I'm going to quit because I could probably just go off forever. You guys, it's just not about that. Get it out of your head. If you're sharing this information and somebody says, yeah, but what's the rate of return? Guess what? You say it's not about a rate of return and you move on. All right, guys, let me know if you have comments, questions, concerns. You can go to themjhotline.com. You can leave me a message, a topic to talk about, whatever. I am happy to answer that for you. Otherwise, MaryJo at withoutthebank.com. Leave me a message. Happy you were here, and I will see you again next week.